I'd like to call the meeting of the Village Council of Corrales to order. Please put your phones on vibrate or turn them off so it doesn't disrupt the discussions being held in the meeting. And then once you've done that, stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So Councilor Miera, are you here?
Here, sir.
Councilor Woolman?
Here.
Councilor Knight?
Here.
Councilor Alsabrook?
Here.
Councilor Burkett?
Here.
Councilor Murray?
I'm here.
Okay. Has everybody a chance to look over the agenda? Could I get a motion to approve the agenda?
Move we approve the agenda.
So we have a motion to approve the agenda from Councilor Knight. Do I have a second?
Second.
And a second from Councilor Miera. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, now we are having a presentation. Parking lot presentation by Fred Hashimoto. Presentation will be about 20 minutes. And then you guys can ask questions. No commentary is going to be taken from the audience. Okay, there you go.
I'm Fred Hashimoto. I live at 485 East La Entrada, right down the road. Anyway, thank you, Mayor and councilors, for allowing us to present our conceptual plan tonight. We really welcome the opportunity. And this will be relatively brief because actually our message is, let's work this out together. It's very simple, and we hope that your response is, yeah, why don't we do that? Anyway, first slide, please, Melanie. Now you can move to the next slide, please. Our plan really offers the opportunity, whoops, to connect and link non-paved paths between East and West Corrales. The blue line on the top is the Acequia Path, and they connect Old Church Rec Center by a soft path. The blue line on the bottom is interior drain paths. They connect the Corrales School, Montessori School, and the Bosque. The brown line between above 3 and 4 is something called the Herman Gonzalez Lane. Next slide, please. The Herman Gonzalez Lane lies on the northern border of the Gonzalez Fields, farmland, 5.5 acres in the 3 acres that the village is trying to obtain. Next slide. This is a view from Corrales Road down the Herman Gonzalez Lane. It goes all the way to the Acequia. It's used to access the 5.5 acres in the back. It's a beautiful non-paved path. The green is the 5.5 acres farmland, and the brown is Gonzalez 3 acres that we're trying to obtain. Next slide, please. And Herman Gonzalez pathway or trail comes in from the right, and this is looking south down Corrales Road on the easement that's going to be used for the Pathways project. It's a big easement, and a lot of people actually walk back and forth. Next slide, please. And so the Herman Gonzalez Lane sort of connects the Acequia to Corrales Road, and our proposed plan would use a path through the village complex to link Corrales Road to the interior drain. Next slide, please. Generally, what we try to think of the municipal complex is a space. It's a space with inner contents and relationships. It's a space with external context. And we think all those are important. Some people have said, well, it's just a parking lot. You know, we should just view it as a parking lot because that's where people park, particularly when business is busy here and there are a lot of people trying to park in the municipal lot, it's a parking place. So we can look at it that way. So next slide, please. Say a villager wants to attend a P and Z meeting with a lot of variances and other hot topics on the agenda. And one's coming down Corrales Road and turning into the municipal complex area. This is what it looks like on our conceptual plan when you go into the village municipal complex. And so parking is obvious. It's on the right, it's in front of you. It's a space that really makes sense. It's at one glance, you can see what might be available, what might not be available. Next slide, please. This is just an aerial view of the same basic thing. The red arrow shows someone entering. Again, you can tell by the configuration, it's legible, it makes sense, it's obvious what to do. And actually, so there's a path cutting down diagonally, and there's a equestrian path brown on the periphery. Next slide. And on the flip side, when one leaves the contentious P and Z meeting late at night and it's dark, the question is, where is my car? And again, this is a view looking out from this building, looking east across the parking lot. You can see the diagonal parking is there. The parking is obvious. So where is my car is not a very tough question. Next slide, please. This is the current administration parking plan. It's SDP Site Development Plan 2207. Parking areas are delineated in blue there. And you can see the parking as is proposed in this conceptual plan is somewhat fragmented, it's busy, it's ad hoc. When you leave the municipal court building right here where we're in, you come out at night, where am I parked? It's not in front of you, it's not an intuitive type of parking picture. Next slide, please. Probably the most efficient parking configuration is a straight line. You have a straight line, you have cars parked on one side and parked on the other. And when the straight line gets fragmented, when you're up against a curb, when you dead end, when you have to go around a corner, the efficiency goes down. Next slide. And so just comparing the parking lots that we propose versus the parking lot of SDP 2207, they both have the same amount, 91 parking spaces. So it's equal. The readability, legibility of it's obvious which is the most readable and legible. Efficiency, as you can tell, the SDP 2207 has a lot of fragmented spaces. When you have a lot of fragmented spaces, you have to have a lot of cross aisles. That takes a lot of parking area that can be used for other purposes. And so our proposed conceptual plan probably provides about 25% reduction in total parking area for the lot relative to SCP 2207. Next slide, please. Pat, you want to talk a little bit about new plan?
Basically, the plan was developed based on paths, as Fred said, diagonal for the walkway, pedestrians, and equestrian trail sheltered on Corrales Road and then down La Entrada. After we sent out the material last month, we received several recommendations, questions, and we tried to address some of those. And we've revised the site plan. Basically, we've provided for expansion space for the commercial kitchen. We can triple the size of the existing building now by just pulling the parking lot, making it a little more compact. We have fire access with now the 96-foot diameter outside radius, 28-foot radius on the inside. So we should meet all the International Fire Code access requirements. It's still up to the fire chief to give us the final approval. He works off that same criteria, but I think that we've accommodated at least the turning radiuses in the entire complex. The fire department can make that complete circle come out or go back out either way. So we hope we've addressed that. We've increased sidewalks. We've extended the sidewalk now completely around to the senior center. We've increased the size of sidewalks. The original plan had about 4,000 square feet of sidewalks, and I think we have about 6,800 square feet of sidewalk at this point. We have one of the suggestions was to look at one-way traffic and angled parking. We looked at a couple of those schemes, and in both of them, we lost parking spaces. So we stuck. The big problem, along with fire access, doesn't allow us to take advantage of angled parking, which has a reduced aisle width. But when we need to accommodate fire trucks, we lose that advantage. So we stayed with the 90-degree parking. We have 91 spaces. We've provided a couple of spaces in animal services. We haven't spoken to them. We thought that would be a good thing to be able to pull a truck in before they transfer dogs into the animal services building behind a fenced enclosure. Again, we've added those, but we really haven't had input from them. So that's just an idea. We've added a garbage enclosure. We revised the site data to include the increased sidewalk area and the expansion. We're still at 29% land coverage, which is less than the 35 required. We still have a cushion, and I'm sure over time that will be used up by future expansions.
Thank you, Ben. Next slide, please, Melanie. The path that goes diagonally, we propose be sort of defined by these structures. The structure on the right comes from the railroad plan in Santa Fe. The structure on the left is from Los Poblanos. The one on the right is of wood. One on the left is of steel. They have some wires going on the top. The vegetation can grow on. They have lights on the structure, so at night you can see the parking and it's safer. Next slide, please. This just shows Los Poblanos. It's a little greener now. It's from a week ago, and it's a really pretty walkway. And actually, you know, the safest place in a parking lot is usually in your car, and this provides a safe haven path to your car. To most of the parking places in the parking lot is via this path. It's safe. It's delineated by these structures. It's obvious what it is. Next slide, please. This is just an aerial view from Corrales Road. Next slide. Another view. Next slide. And this again shows looking down a proposed path or a conceptual path of these structures. Next slide, please. We care about path safety in detail, and we received some comments that people did not like the idea of bicycles racing through diagonally through the municipal complex. So we thought it reasonable to have bikes dismount at both sides, both ends of the path. And so bike dismount is really important. Speed limits are important. Signage is important, particularly say when the path might be crossed by vehicular traffic. And so the big thing here is going to be a safe path, and bikes are not going to race through. On the right was just a conceptual drawing from national standards for bicycle pedestrian paths. And since bicycles now are going to dismount, actually this type of dimension can be smaller than shown. Next slide, please. Just going to crosswalks on the northwest corner of the municipal complex. This is proposed. Next. This north is up, and the path there crossing Corrales Road goes from the northwest corner of the municipal complex to the southeast corner of the Gonzalez 3 acres easement. It does not interfere with, it's hard to see, but there's a Maestas lane off to the right. It supports one resident one household. As we all know, the bank is no longer going to be there. And so, even that inlet to the bank might not exist in, we don't know how long time. Interestingly is that in the old days, the current crosswalk at Village Hall served a purpose. Employees can go from Village Hall across the street to the post office. They can go across the street to the bank. It was an easy cross the street and you got the post office and the bank. Post office is long gone. Bank is going. And so there's no real reason why you really need to have that crosswalk there, and hopefully it can be moved up. Next slide, please. So as far as the parking lot is concerned, the parking lot we propose is very user-friendly. It's legible. It's a safe space, easily readable. It's simple. It's not fragmented. It's a safe haven. The path is for safe access to parking, and when you have lights on it, it's great at night. Same number of parking places are available in both SCP 2207 and our proposed conceptual plan. No bicycle riding on the path. Fire truck access meets the International Fire Code requirements, as Pat said, with a 96-foot, it's a big turnaround radius and a 28-foot inner radius. It does not cross residence driveway and allows expansion for community center or any other building in that corner with adequate parking there. So it's a simple, obvious parking lot design. It makes sense, and it's more efficient. Next slide, please. On top of that, it links. It has got location and connectivity. It links, as we said at the very beginning, soft paths between East and West Corrales for pedestrian, bicyclists, equestrians in the central part of the village. It connects in a way, the church area, the rec center, the ACE, the Bosque, the schools by non-paved paths. No comparable linkage exists along Corrales Road. Some people have mentioned Priestley Road. Well, I've lived on Priestley Place for 30 years. I don't live there anymore, but Priestley Place intersects Priestley Road. At the intersection, it jogs. Intersection also, there's a mini turnabout there with a tree in the middle. And it's also got entertainment center, Sears Entertainment Center on the corner. So there's no comparison. I mean, Priestley Road is not a good linkage spot, but this area really is. This linkage here is strategically located on Corrales Road. It's right here in the commercial district. It naturally ties in with pedestrian access route pathways project and the interior drain project. So it links current projects or proposed projects that the village is considering. Next slide, please. And it enhances the municipal complex space. This space is probably, with its buildings and its space, is probably the most visible village space on Corrales Road. The rec center is back. ACE is going to be back. The library is back. The municipal complex is right here. And it's a very visible location, both with a lot and with some buildings. And so we have some structures there that are attractive. It'll be very identifiable, be very distinctive. Hey, we're crossing Village Hall, Village Complex. It sends a message that the village endorses alternative healthy transportation modes, pedestrian, bicycle, horse riding, to motor vehicles. Next slide, please. So in the special meeting you all had on February 21st, tweaking was mentioned several times, and it was thought to be tweaking the conceptual plan seemed to be a favorite action. Now the plan 2207 is a conceptual plan too. Amy Bell said this, Melanie has said this. It's a conceptual plan, just like our plan is a conceptual plan. And so they can be tweaked. Tweaking can be very possible since the proposed conceptual plan works around established permanent buildings and the animal services site. It doesn't move, no new buildings, it's not going to move any buildings. So we propose that the council direct the mayor and administrator to have interested village residents, resident architects, and planners who have been involved with the proposed conceptual plan to interactively and collaboratively work with Main Street, with Amy Bell, the designer, the village engineer, Steve Groman, and others, fire chief, police chief, counselors, governing body, to explore how the conceptual plans can be tweaked and optimized. And this working together means to, look at different options, to estimate costs, to try to brainstorm on funding, to think about phasing in different options, phasing in if costs are an issue, phasing in parts of the project. But we think it's very important to give it our best, give planning the time and attention it needs, and do it right. The next slide. Thank you very much. Appreciate your time.
Thank you. So any questions? Bill?
I have two, if I could, Fred. We've had a problem ongoing with crosswalks and where they might be placed along Corrales Road. You probably have not talked with New Mexico Department of Transportation, but do you foresee a problem with getting that moved up, whatever that is, 150 feet or whatever that may be?
Well, we all know DOT is not the easiest organization to work with. But we don't need our current crosswalk. And DOT might think, hey, you're eliminating maybe one access on the northwest sector, and you're putting a crosswalk around there, so that swap is okay. But aside from crosswalk can be an issue, but aside from the crosswalk issue, this plan makes sense even without, it makes sense. This is a parking lot. And aside from being linkage and beautifying and that sort of stuff. So, crosswalks are important. DOTs has to be involved. And that's just part of the process.
And my second question is, the administration plan cost an estimate of $657,845 plus 10% in design fees. Do you know if your plan is above that, below that, or about the same?
Well,
I know you don't have exact dollars probably, but
no, we haven't looked at it from a cost standpoint, but we've discussed the costly items in our plan, what we looked at. I think in reality, that $660,000 estimate that you have is probably closer to $860,000. That estimate was done 3 years ago. We've had major inflation, particularly in the construction business. So I'm thinking that we're aimed at that. We have a smaller parking lot footprint, mainly because we've eliminated 7,000 square feet in the northwest entry exit. So we have a smaller parking lot, a smaller footprint to build to. The crusher fines are expensive, but so is asphalt. And I think the crusher fines are required based on our impermeable surface requirement. I think there's a lot of advantages. It's less costly than an asphalt, but certainly has a higher maintenance tab going forward, which also a smaller parking lot will have a smaller maintenance budget going forward too.
thank you.
Counselor Knight?
Hi, thank you, gentlemen. It's a nice presentation. I was wondering when Amy and Angela came up and talked about the conceptual plan that they had, they talked about once they developed their plan, they put it around the village, like in the library and in the administration complex and in the rec center. Have you done any of that as far as reaching out to the public, or was it just this 12 people on the committee that did this?
No, I think that this is a plan, and we're trying to figure out the best place to gain visibility for the plan. That's why we came before P&Z back at November-ish of last year. And then went to you all in council, and it's just a conceptual plan, and it's not an official plan. It's not an official type of communication from the village. And so we just wanted to percolate up the usual processes. And we don't, the Corrales comment is not as is not as available maybe to putting things in it as it might have been in the past. And so, we thought, well, we're not gonna try to get visibility that way. So our visibility, this is our first official, presentation that we've been allowed to give. We've been told, no, we're not gonna consider it. You can present today. So this is it. We'd be glad to make presentation boards and put them Hanselman's, put them in the community center, put them in Village Hall, anywhere.
I might add too, that what we've looked at really are national standards instead of relative to trail width paths. We haven't decided totally on the surface finish. For instance, we wanted to meet with the Bicycle and Pedestrian Commission. We attended their last meeting. We didn't have details, and of course, it's until we get some kind of approval as even a plan to tweak. We haven't gone forward, but we're looking to those kind of groups to give us input. That's a planning process. It requires two sides in every process. We've approached it from our side only at this point because we're not the official plan.
John?
Thank you, Mayor. I may have missed this detail. Were you recommending a one direction around the center parking clockwise or counterclockwise or not?
No, we're not. Since we have to have those wide aisles for fire protection, there's no advantage to one way.
Two cars. could-
So all the drive aisles on our plan are two-way.
Okay,
You can go in either direction when you pull out of a parking spot.
okay, thank you. And then my second question is about the walkway and the structures.
Yes.
The red metal reminds me too much of Calder sculptures, and that's beautiful in a different context. But I'm wondering, do you think there'd be any hope of engaging an artist to, construct some meaningful wood related structures over that? I'm just throwing it out there since we're talking about ideas and concepts.
Yes, and I think that would be great to be able to do something like that, but I think that we're ultimately going to be looking at what can we take out of this to accomplish this plan. We looked at just roughly at a $30,000 expense for the 12 red frames that we've shown. There's things in every plan that you can make value judgments on, and that certainly is one of them. The existing 2207 has $85,000 worth of shade structures. Again, when it gets down to how much money do you have to spend, what's eliminated? And I would guess that that's really part of that collaborative process that we're asking to go forward with.
Councilor Burkett?
Two things. One, a point. I think it's wise that you guys haven't posted this or widely distributed this. I mean, I'm hoping that the path forward and the intent of this is to find a way to take a lot of the ideas from this plan and assimilate them with the plan that we already have done an SDP on. I certainly think there's some things on here I like better, but I don't want to disregard the work that's been put in previously. So I'd love to find a path where we kind of get together and make one really handsome baby out of the two plans. But I don't think having dueling plans in the village is beneficial for either plan or for the village as a whole. And then my question is, so you were very clear as far as on the west side, the kind of transition for bikes or pedestrians. On La Entrada, is there any sort of walking easement there? Or would people have to just go onto the road on La Entrada on the east side?
There's approximately 5 feet clear the entire length within the property line on La Entrada. Where the water tank is, the adobe wall is encroaching on that, but the good thing, we thought, as you get further down La Entrada, there's less traffic, there's less of a problem. And we were guiding the equestrian trail along Corrales Road behind the existing landscaping to be a little more protected. And then utilizing as much clear area as we could on La Entrada for the equestrian trail.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Can't do anything.
Thank you, Mayor. Counselor, so a couple questions. How flexible is this designed to
accommodate charging stations that might be installed just for future electric vehicle use and so forth.
You know, the only magic thing about the charging stations, it's the same size parking space. So you just pick which parking spaces you want. That's based really on accessibility to power. You know, we're not going to put them at the far reach where we have a long run to power them, obviously. But we didn't designate them at this point, but you know, once we start looking at those details, I think it becomes clear where the charging stations really should be located. Any of the 91 parking spaces would accommodate them, other than the handicapped, which we don't want to take away.
And I think my other comment would be looking at the plan is hopefully we would use drought tolerant planting and landscaping so that we minimize our water usage.
Yeah, we thought so too. And basically what we did, we took what Amy referred to as the parklet that was in front of the community kitchen. We took basically that same concept and moved it up to Corrales Road where it's visible and becomes a pedestrian entrance. It's more welcoming to the center. We thought it had more value than being tucked back in the back.
Councilor Mira.
Thanks, sir. The structure that's going down the middle, is that available or compatible with some panels for solar paneling?
It could work. That could be incorporated in just as easily. It would take a lot more structure than what we were doing. We were just following the concept of Los Poblanos and the rail trail in Santa Fe. And we chose those markers mostly for safety to indicate that that is a walkway and provides more of a protective sense of separation between vehicles and pedestrians.
We thought also that it's a very simple type of delineation of the path. It's not massive walls or fences. It's just a very simple aesthetic type of structure. Maybe it's like a Calder, but it is, or it could be wooden, or it could be designed by artists. But it's a simple structure. It's airy, it's light, and it delineates a safe space to the parking.
Yes, sir, Stuart.
Mayor, this is for Ron. I'm curious about how much parking does our employees take when the current system, the way we have it?
If you count the, there's only about 6 in the administration side. And then you have planning and zoning and the court that are about another 4 or 5. And then the police department, of course, has, the cars that are there that are anywhere between 10 to 14 cars at a time.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Hey, guys, thank you very much. Really appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
Mayor, I don't know if it's appropriate this time, but I would make a motion that we have the presenters of this concept get in contact with Amy Bell and Main Street to conceptualize maybe between the two plans and come forward with a resultant plan.
So you are making a motion to direct,
I don't know. I just don't know how to do it.
what happened? I'm sorry.
Somebody on Zoom. I think we found him.
So you want to make a motion to direct the administration to work with Amy Bell
And Main Street
and Main Street
to conceptualize, and merge both these plans to the best of their ability.
to try to come up with a plan
Yes,
that includes both ideas.
yes.
Do you have a second for that?
A second.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second to direct the administration to work on a plan. I will remind you that we already have a site development plan. We have ordered an animal services building and we have some funds to do some work on the parking lot. Maybe mostly demolition and a little bit of crusher fines. So how do you guys vote? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay. So I'm going to briefly ask a little consult here. That's okay. They just directed us. We're not making it open. I didn't think it was. All right. Okay. We'll take a look at it and see what we can come up with. All right. So I want to direct your attention to the audience where we have Kathleen Cates, our representative in the audience. She is responsible for some of the funding that we received this year. Yeah. Thank you, Kathleen. Appreciate you being here. And now we'll move on to Administrator's report. Mr. Curry?
Tanya is going to lead us off with an abbreviated COVID report because of lack of data.
Thank you, Mayor, Councilors, Administrator Curry. Correct. There is not a lot of data anymore coming out on COVID, but I do want to give you what I do have. We'll start with, they did update cases in New Mexico today, and we're having 30 cases per 100,000. We've had, as of from 5/9 to 5/15, we had 49 admitted to the hospital and no deaths. They have not reported on deaths since April the 17th. I did ask them, and they're working on trying to figure out how they're going to keep deaths up to date. We have had from 5/12 to 5/18, positivity was 9.2%. In Sandoval County on the federal dashboard, we're having 4.9 people per 100,000 with COVID. And in the last 7 days, 47 Sandoval County residents were admitted to the hospital. If you start looking at the numbers they want us to start looking at, which is hospital visits, hospital admissions and deaths, which we don't have. In the state of New Mexico yesterday, 11% of all hospital visits were for COVID-related illness. Doesn't mean they had COVID, but they went in thinking they had COVID. And in the metro area, it was 13% of all hospital emergency room visits were COVID-related. With that said, don't forget, it's estimated 1 out of 10 people who get COVID will have long COVID or post-acute sequelae of COVID. There's some new studies coming out on that I'll have ready for the next time I do a briefing if I'm asked to do one. We've only done 1,395 vaccines in the last 7 days, which is low because we know there are still people out there that didn't get their first Omicron booster. The only other update is there is an outbreak of monkeypox going on in Chicago right now. We have not had a new case in New Mexico since December. They will reestablish the monkeypox dashboard if we do get a new case. And I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Council, any questions?
Just a couple of things I want to mention is that as we mentioned in the budget workshop, the deadline for turning in our ICIP projects to DFA is August 18th. So we'll be bringing those to you. And then there's Melanie has mentioned to me today that once we get some of these in there, we might run a Survey Monkey on some of those throughout the village just to get some more input from folks, depending on how the audience is selected for that. Also, just as a point of interest, that the village, like most public entities, has been seeing a severe increase in IPA requests. In the village alone this year so far, we're running right at 100 IPA requests. And I mentioned that to you because the time that is taken by mostly Melanie and Sky to issue those or to take care of those and work with our attorneys is significant. And a lot of times those IPA requests come in the form of police reports. A lot of times they come in where we had an unusual one at a planning and zoning meeting where we've having to spend a lot of money redacting certain videos that were taken during one of the planning and zoning meetings outside. So just making you aware that that is on the increase and we don't expect it to decline anytime soon. Also, you all know that the river is running full. The chief and his staff have been spending a lot of time there. We've had some trees come into the river as the banks have collapsed. As an example, it's running about 5,100 cubic feet. And it's also, if you look at the depth of the water at the Alameda Bridge, it's running between 6 and 6.5 feet. And if you think about that, all the times you've driven across that bridge and you've seen a trickle. So it's not a safe place to be. I know I spoke with the chief yesterday. He took the day off yesterday because of all the rescues and the efforts that he had to spend down on the river over the weekend. I got a phone call from an experienced paddleboarder who was intending to get on near the siphon or where the siphon used to be and paddleboard down to the Alameda Bridge. Can be done, I guess, but again, a lot of the resources that we have here in the village as a way of safety are being expended because people are recreating on the village, recreating on the river, which they certainly have a right to do. But it's a dangerous place to be. And so a lot of the paths that many of you have walked over the years down along the river are underwater at this point. So just be careful to everyone that goes out to recreate.
Councilor Waldman.
Just a quick question. I'm curious about the cost of the rescues on the river. Do we fully fund all the rescues in the river?
Well, our staff is out there, and if they're working overtime, yes.
So even though the river doesn't belong to the village and it's an extension of the bosque, we pick up the full cost of that.
I could ask the chief if he wants to add to that, but I believe that's part of the job.
Mayor, councilors, Mr. Curry. So yes, if someone calls 911, we respond regardless, if it's in our river, Bosque, if it's along the corridor, Rio Rancho, Albuquerque, Bernalillo County. And all the entities usually come together when you have a river rescue. Requires a lot of resources, but we just pick up the tab, each entity. We don't have any sort of ordinance or anything like that to bill. Some entities do, but we don't currently have that. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Yes, sir. Council also.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Regarding the, not for you, Chief. Thanks. Regarding the increased IPRA costs, which seem to be going up and up, is it worth considering an additional part-time headcount just to handle those?
At this point in time, Melanie and Sky are handling most of them. Well, they're handling all of them. And they run in spurts every now and then. But that's something that we'll keep under consideration because one of the things that could be costly to the village is that if we don't, and we've experienced this in the past, for those of you, I know Councilor Knight has experienced this. Shortly after I came in here, we had several cases where the village lost some IPRA cases to the tune of well over $50,000. So it's something that we will have to invest in to make sure that we don't miss a deadline.
And I would imagine something like a part-time headcount like that for IPRA that could be later in the year and handled with a bar.
Yeah.
Councilor Murray.
Thank you, Mayor, Councilor. So, Chief, I hate to bring you back up again, but at our last budget meeting, you indicated that you had an issue with the boat taking it out on the river and it had a mechanical issue. So I'm curious, and we kind of mentioned the American Rescue Act, maybe to look at purchasing an airboat to replace the current float on boat we have. Is that correct?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, Mr. Curry. Yeah, we're currently researching that and looking at costs and seeing if we can utilize some of the American recovery money to help us make an investment into an airboat to help us with these types of situations. An airboat could be used at high water, low water. And currently we don't have we don't have a resource like that in Sandoval County.
Also, I was curious, also in the news, there's been a lot of talk about homelessness along the river Is there any issue with that with the Bosque within the Corrales boundaries?
Mr. Mayor, Council, we have had homeless camps reported to us in the Bosque. About 3 weeks ago, we had one reported by a citizen, and the Corrales Police Department and myself went out at 10:30 at night. We take that very seriously because there was a report there might be a campfire. And we located it and escorted the individual out of the village. We have a really good group of volunteer citizens. The Bosque Advisory Commission has a group that they're always recruiting to be eyes and ears for us. And knock on wood, we only had that one in the last 3 weeks, but we try to stay really on top of that. Yeah, because we're definitely at risk. We don't want to let our guard down. We get moisture, but our Bosque is still at risk of burning.
Thank you, Mayor. Appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Anyone else? Okay. Who's
Okay.
next?
The last item I want to mention, I had a conversation with Alan Gonzalez today. And unlike my other updates, there has been some movement. One of the discontented aunts in California, they filed a lawsuit against her, and it took 3 times for the server to find her. As Alan said, they were playing a little hide and seek. And since it was served on her, Alan has had the opportunity to have a conversation with her. And he believes that she understands now the seriousness of what they're trying to do. So stay tuned.
Yes, keep
movement.
your fingers crossed. Okay, is that done? So now we'll move on to Counselors Forum, and this section is for informational purposes only, not for discussion and debate, to inform the governing body of an issue or concern that would not be addressed on the agenda during the business session. Counselor Knight.
Thank you, Mayor. I went to the Rio Metro Regional Transit District Board on Friday in a Zoom meeting. And I just wanted to highlight some of the things that we talked about. The key accomplishments that they reviewed. In 2023, they marked the full fiscal year continuance of the rail runner and bus transit services after COVID. The ridership has recovered 80 to 80%. They're adding 3 weekday and 5 Saturday trains for traveling flexibility. On the bus side, they've added 2 commuter buses that were previously operated by ABQ Ride. They've sought after and was awarded $20 million for operations and maintenance. Because the rail runners started in 2006, they have to do a lot of upgrading to their equipment and facilities. With the COVID relief funds they have until 2024, they're putting in 2 sidings, which is another whole track around the Broadway area and the Alameda area to make sure that trains can pull over when they need to. And this will also work with centralizing traffic control. And finally, for total revenues for the buses, it's $50,600,000. Expenses are $26,180,000. And for the rail runner, the revenues are $111 million. And the expenses are $93 million.
Wow, spot on. Yes, sir, Councilwoman.
Mayor, councilors, we will have some residents tonight speaking about speeding on a specific street. But speeding is a problem throughout the village. Last Friday, a friend of mine was driving the speed limit on Loma Larga, and a large pickup truck rapidly approached from the rear. After hovering within a few feet of his bumper, he passed the double yellow line and is going at least 50 miles an hour and continued gaining speed. We used to have a sign at the entrance to the village on Corrales Road, something like, "This is an animal-friendly village. Drive slowly and see our village, drive fast and see our judge." Many years ago, I owned a restaurant which made early morning deliveries to Intel and then down to Frontier Mart. I wanted our delivery drivers not to speed coming down Meadowlark, as enforcement was strict in the village. If you get a ticket, you've been warned and it's your responsibility. It's time we made speed control and pedestrian safety a priority throughout the village, and perhaps it's time we put that sign up again. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Council Murray.
Thank you, Mayor. Also, like Councilor Knight, I attended the Metropolitan Transportation Planning Commission meeting last Friday. And what they're looking at right now is the transportation infrastructure process. They have $125 million for the next 5 years. All the projects have been submitted. They've been vetted, and right now, and you should have had a copy sent to you and all the counselors with the projects and their funding and so forth. So it looks like that they're moving forward. We also had a presentation on the I-40 corridor from West Albuquerque to the state line that the DOT is looking at. They claim that it is satisfactory up to 2050 in terms of capacity, but there are areas where they need to look at that. There are places where there are congestion, and some of the off ramps are not conducive for some of the work, but they're working on that. So anyway, it was an interesting meeting, to say the least.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir. Councilor Alsabrook.
Thank you, Mayor. Just an announcement, reminder that Saturday, June 3rd is Corrales Tractor Club sponsoring our annual antique tractor and car show from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. It's totally free for attendance. We anticipate 30 plus antique tractors, several antique car clubs. There'll be live music, food trucks, and as a New Mexico nonprofit this year, since I'm on the board of the tractor club, the recipient of any proceeds is the New Mexico Children's Hospital.
Thank you. And it's free.
Unless you want to bring your car and then, or you bring your tractor, and then we'd rather have you as a member, and then it's free. So yeah, but yeah, it's free for all attendants. Yeah.
So be sure to stress that, Sky. It's free. Yeah. Anyone else? Okay, let's move on to Corralinos Forum. This section is for informational purposes only, not for discussion and debate, to inform the governing body of an issue or concern that would not be addressed on the agenda during the business session. There is a 3-minute time limit. According to Village Code Section 2-60G regarding public decorum during a meeting, no person shall act in a disorderly manner, nor while addressing the governing body shall any person make any personal, impertinent, or slanderous remarks. The presiding officer may bar anyone acting improperly from continuing his address of the governing body. Do we have anyone?
Sure do. Mr. Rick Toller. You could state your name and address for the record. You'll have 3 minutes.
Hi, my name is Rick Toller. I live at 483 Hanson Road. And I also put down my friend Andrew's name on my Corralinos Forum in case he wanted to speak. But I can't remember his last name. So anyway, it looks like he's getting there. I am I'm the guy that made all the slow down signs. I've talked to all of you at length about my concerns about speeding in the village. Thanks, Bill, for putting that on the record. And last council meeting, my grandson got up and talked. He's 7 years old, and he's really concerned about he's not just concerned about speeding for his safety, and he's also concerned about his dad, because his dad, who can't be here tonight, gets out there and gets in people's faces. And I on the one hand, I support him for doing that, but on the other hand, I'm kind of scared too that a road rage incident will take place, because it's really bad on West La Entrada, their road. It's also really bad on Camino Hermosa, very bad on Meadowlark, terrible on Loma Larga, and there are other roads as well. So I had intended to speak after Felix last week, but didn't get onto the agenda properly. So, and what I wanted to do was to follow up his general comments with some specifics, and there are 3 really good specific things that we can do, not just on West La Entrada, which is my concern, because my grandsons live there, and but on the other roads as well. And those three things are, I mentioned them in the letter that I sent to all of you, and I don't know if you guys probably haven't gotten a copy of it yet. But it will be in the Corrales comment. And the two of those things I mentioned in my letter, the third one just came up with today. The first one is just simply to stripe the road and make it clear, visually clear. It's like a traffic calming strategy. And I understand from various sources that it works pretty well for a lot of people.
Thank you, sir, that's your time.
That's my time? Okay, well, so striping, lowering the speed limit to 15 miles an hour and just putting up more signs. There aren't that many signs to tell you what the speed limit is. So thank you very much for.
Thank you. Thank you, Rick.
Next on the list, I just have Andrew. I don't have a last name.
No.
Okay, if you could state your name for the record and your address, you'll have 3 minutes.
506 West Lawn Trotter. This is my first meeting that I've been to. My family's been in the village for 33 years. Yeah, and I would like to also see that sign come back. You see, drive slow, enjoy the village, drive fast and see the judge. I don't know why it's gone. I don't know why the whole attitude towards speeding has changed. I mean, before, when you live in Corrales 20 plus years ago or so, I would tell anyone coming in to visit, driving in, hey, don't speed, you will get a ticket, and you would. Now it's just a joke. Okay, commercial, there's more commercial businesses here, more bars and things like that. There is not a lot of East Coast, East West. There's Meadowlark, La Entrada, Ella, and then down further. More and more people are using my street. It narrows down. You're talking about putting a path for pedestrians. I've got in on some of that. This is my first meeting. I'll have to look into that. Why not make La Entrada a single lane with tree medians at 15 mile an hour? Make it more of the village lifestyle. It's a major thoroughfare. People are just hauling. I had a meeting. I've called the chief numerous times. I spoke with him. There's 2 open positions on the police force. Why? I don't know. Why is there? I don't know. Public service. What's the biggest public safety thing here? It's speeding. You want to get in cars with maybe criminals coming to our village, get them for speeding. You can't just pull them over. Like he said, somebody's riding their tail. I was going to the airport 6 o'clock in the morning. People are passing me going out of the village in the morning. There's commutes. They could be on the Meadowlark, La Entrada, and another east-west further down, have a speeding thing. And where are the speed monitor devices we paid? I don't know how much for. Wasn't there 2 of them that were purchased? How's that money lost? How was it $8 million that was found? My family's been in the village. I just bought a property like 2 years ago. I don't want to snoop around and stuff, but there's going to be some accountability or something. I'm not threatening anybody, but I'm just kind of curious. How can you buy the machines? Why aren't they getting this data? Tell me why. Real quick, let me see. Like I said, I've had the meetings. I want the village slowed down. There's no reason why. If you want to drive fast, you gotta get to work. Don't live in Corrales. Leave the village. Go move somewhere else. Like I said, why not make and launch do more of a for equine, for families? Women with baby carriages have to get off in the dirt. There's that 5-foot access he's talking about, the easement all the way down there. Why not? Why not put trees down there and have it? So I'm just curious what's going on there and why the chief hasn't hired another 2 officers. Why is that 10 to 15 vehicles? I think there's more out there now. Broken down ones. Why? Why? I don't know. You're the village, the money guy, I assume. So yeah.
Thank you, sir.
I
That's your
appreciate
time.
Your time, and I will be back, and I'm looking for some of those answers and more.
Thank
So,
you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Appreciate your time. Thank you.
And that's everyone, Mayor.
That's it. Okay, move to the consent agenda. Approval of minutes for May 9th, 2023, regular meeting. Approval of minutes, May 18th, 2023, work study. Then we have 3 reappointments, Rob Black to Planning and Zoning, Lonnie Peach to Bosque Advisory Commission, and Walter Walkout to the Library Board. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
I have a motion from Counselor Woolman. Do I have a second?
I'll second
Counselor
that.
Burkett? Does anybody have any, want to have any of the, anything removed from the consent agenda? If not, then all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Ayes have it. Consent agenda is approved. We move on to new business. Consideration, action, and approval of proclamation 23. That's proclamation 23-04 in recognition of Public Works Week. I have a motion to approve.
So moved.
I have a motion to approve in a second. Does anybody want to talk about it?
Big thank you.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah,
sir.
big-
Councilor
big-
Murray.
Big thank you.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think poor Michael is under the gun and he's shorthanded, but big thank you anyway.
Thank you, Michael. Would you like to stand for applause?
Yes.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it. Consideration, action, and approval of proclamation 23-05 in recognition of EMS Week. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
I have a motion from Counselor Woolman and a second from Counselor Knight. Anybody want to talk about it? Counselor Woolman?
Mayor, just, it's a little bit out of date now, but just to recognize our EMS person, the person of the year last year, Tanya Latin.
It's never too late to recognize Tanya Latin.
Yeah, so
Hope she's still on.
Are you on, Tanya? No, guess not.
Yes, sir, I am on.
She is, oh, she is on. Okay.
Her-
Chief, do you want to make any comments? Oh, sure you
Oh,
do.
sure. That's right. Give the man a mic.
Mayor, Counselor, Administrator Curry. Just thank you for all the support that we do get from you, the governing body and citizens of Corrales. I mean, I know we work really hard, all my staff, Tanya. I think we had our challenges during COVID. As you hear the reports, we're starting to slow down a little bit, but we're trying to recover. But what we do is for you and the citizens of Corrales. So thank you again for all the support. And I know it's budget time and we appreciate it. So thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir. Councilman Murray.
Mayor, I was also going to just reiterate that given the amount of work they put in for COVID, it's a big thank you is needed from us to you for your service, for Tanya, for her and her dedicated. Oh, she's been at it. I hope she gets a vacation to Barbados or someplace, but anyway, she deserves it.
Mayor, councilors, I think you all know Tanya and she's given a directive and she just runs with it. And this started just as a simple thing, just taking care of our citizens in Corrales and it just expanded and we just had to modify and I think she did a fantastic job. So
Well,
thank you.
A big thank you to both of you. Thank you very
You're
much.
welcome. Our pleasure.
And you can give them a hand too. Consideration, action, approval of resolution 23-30, approval of new fees for
Did-
fire inspection.
Sorry, Mayor, did we vote on that last one?
Oh, did we,
Did we?
did I bypass you guys? Jeez. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Okay, thank you very much, Melanie. I got all caught up in the emotion of the fire chief, Okay, consideration, action, approval of resolution 23-30, approval of new fees for the fire inspections. Now, let me start out by saying these are new fees because we have never charged for fire inspections. Do I have a motion to approve the resolution for new fees for fire inspections?
So moved.
I have a motion to approve from Councilor Mieri. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Councilor Murray. Any discussion? Yes, sir, Councilor Burkett.
Just one quick question. I mean, we're doing it by building size, which makes sense, but it would also seem like maybe complexity of what they're having to inspect would be something that factored into that as well. So I don't know, is this typically how municipalities do this or, and then what if there's an outside situation that needs inspecting?
We'll ask the chief.
Fourth time to the microphone for the chief tonight.
Who-
He's
who-
the guest of honor.
He's the
Mayor.
one who does the inspections.
Mayor, councilors, so the first question was like individuals, is that the question is why it's broken down in individuals?
Just as far as, yeah, I mean, we're breaking it down by square footage, but is there any subcategories within that if something's particularly complex or very straightforward?
So we try to keep it very simple. There's other municipalities that really break down, it's actually a couple of sheets by like occupancy and different hazards and associated. Since this is the beginning of us actually charging for some of our inspections, we wanted to keep it simple. For example, we do have buildings that would be larger in square foot, but have like sub offices, you know, smaller little rentals. So we're thinking if the building owner wants to pay for the inspection for the whole building, then it'd be like the larger fee, one lump sum, and then we'll do all the sub businesses as one. Or the building owner may want to defer each individual business to do their own and pay for their own fee. Does that make sense?
Yep.
So that's how we're going to try to work with that.
Yes, sir. Counselor Mira.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Chief, what's going to generate the necessity for such an inspection?
What's going to generate?
Generate the need to have the inspection? And what's
So
going to
our business license. So we've been doing inspections and we've been doing it for free. And this is something that we started like back in 19, then we got COVID and we just didn't feel we should introduce this during COVID.
Okay.
We are working with the clerk's office and we're actually, you know, trying to make our community safer. So we have been doing inspections, but now working with the clerk's office, everyone that gets a business license would require a fire inspection with the exception of a business that doesn't have maybe clients or public visiting like home ox, but some home ox would be required to have an inspection if they're using, you know, let's say torches or they're doing, you know, having public to the house, et cetera.
Thank you, Mr. The question was just the fact that we're going to continue to do what we were doing before. Nothing new is going to be generated because of this.
No, and all we're doing is just trying to recover some of our hours spent on some businesses. Some businesses, you could see that we have like a reinspection, a second reinspection. We do have businesses that require us to go out multiple times and they still aren't in compliance. And it just takes a lot of our time. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Counselor Burkett.
Sorry, two things. One, just to follow up on the second part of mine, what do we do for outdoor where we don't have a building square footage? And then my second question is, you guys have historically come into the haunted house and I'm sure other special events throughout the village and done fire inspections to make sure those are safe. Will these fees apply to nonprofits and community events that are happening as well?
So we didn't break that down as far as like nonprofits, but like outdoor stuff, you know, like food trucks, we are currently doing that. And that inspection would be probably the minimum. I think is what we decided was the $10 because it's under 500 square foot. So it'd be a small fee for like the food trucks, tents, etc. We'll be working with the clerk's office on some of those that are sponsored by the village. Those we'll have to just decide whether there's gonna be a fee associated with those, or if that's just gonna be something that we, you know, if we sanction that event, then we'll probably just do, you know, we'll have fire inspector present or myself and I go and do those.
Yes, sir. Counselor Murray.
Thank you. So I take it these fees will be folded into the general fees that the village maintains. And then if there are increases and so forth, we approve those as they come up.
Yes.
Okay.
And just for clarification too, it's, you know, the fire department, we're not going to be collecting the money or anything. It's going to be all through the clerk's office, just like you would if you apply or pay for your business license. Yep.
Yes, sir. Counselor Woolman.
Chief, is there an estimate, given these new fees, what the total income might be in the course of the year based on the business licenses?
No, I apologize. I didn't like put a calculation, but we do have a lot of businesses. But once we start charging these fees, we'll have a better projection next year for the budget. And we're currently working with the clerk's office right now where some occupancies will be inspected maybe every 2 years and some will be required every year. So we're in the process of trying to streamline that. And again, we hope this is a work, you know, will help us to start. I'm sure I'll be before you again when we forgot something or, you know, it's a work in progress. Yeah.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. So How do you vote, Counselor Mira?
Yes, sir.
Counselor Woolman?
Aye.
Counselor Knight?
Aye.
Counselor Alsabrook?
Aye.
Counselor Burkett?
Aye.
And Counselor Murray.
Aye.
Now I'm going to do a little out of order thing because I didn't do it fully when we recognized Public Works, but I'm going to call Michael Chavez up with his new partner in crime. Please. Former defensive tackle for the New York Giants.
Uh-oh.
Mayor, your favorite counselor, Steve Lescu, our new employee. We have another one coming in January. And Steve, or Danny Lavatalasa. Steve actually just finished his training for wastewater and he's signing up for the test.
Thank you, Steve, for coming. Danny, thanks for coming. And he's what, 8 months now? Yeah, very good. Okay. Sorry about that. That was my bad. Okay, number 4. Consideration action approval of resolution 23-31, adopting a preliminary budget. Yes, ma'am.
A quick question on that. Before we reviewed the budget on our work study, there were some boards and commissions requiring or asking for funds. Are those now in the budget?
Yes. That was an additional $50,000 that we added. Isn't that right?
Yeah.
Oh, Raina's online?
Yeah.
Okay, Raina?
I'm on the line. I believe it was, it came out to 51,000, I believe, and 10 of that was for, Main Street.
Yes,
On that point.
Okay, thank you. That's.
yes, yes, sir.
I said, thank you, Mr.
Okay,
Mayor. On that point, because I was gonna ask pretty much the same question, just specific to Main Street. We gave them 7,500 for this last.
yes, sir.
And did we put them in the budget for next year at that same 7,500 Reina, or do we do something different?
We gave them an additional $10,000,
So an additional or adopt to.
an additional over what they normally get, not additional with the 7,500.
Got you. Thank you.
Yeah. Anybody else? How do you vote, Councilor Murray?
I
We need
think
a
we need a
motion.
motion and I would move to approve the preliminary budget
Oh,
for,
I thought we have a motion.
Not yet.
yeah, you got
do
wound up
now.
with Michael.
Oh, that's right. I did an out of order thing. I'm sorry. Okay, so you made a motion to approve the budget
I'll second.
and a second from Councilor Miera. And we've had a brief discussion. Anybody else want to make a comment? Okay, how do you vote, Councilor Murray?
Aye.
Councilor Burkett?
Aye.
Councilor Alsabrook?
Aye.
Councilor Knight?
Aye.
Councilor Willman?
Aye.
Councilor Miera?
Yes, sir.
Very good. So the preliminary budget is approved. And that's going to go to DFA.
It has to go up to DFA by June 1st and it
Yeah.
will be there.
It'll be there. Okay.
And I'm just reminding the council again that we wanted the input of the council. And DFA did not require a vote of the council, but we thought it was the best to have the workshop and have your very good input.
Good job.
Next resolution, number 5, consideration action approval of resolution 23-32, approval of disposition of village property.
See a car there?
There's a bunch of the old cars and old equipment that's sitting over there at the Jones property basically now.
I move we approve 23-31.
Thank you.
Second.
32.
So we have a
32.
motion to approve 23-32 and a second from Councilor Woolman. Any discussion, Councilor Murray?
Thank you. So what happens to the equipment that, say, the vehicles that do not get sold? What are we going to do with those? And then also with the electronic equipment, where are we going to dispose of those? Hopefully in some facility where they'll accept the electronic waste.
Melanie, you want to take that?
I would be happy to. So with the vehicles that are not sold, I think we'll hang on to them for now. I did get an email from a company that comes in and buys surplus autos. I think if we end up going that route, I would bring it back to the council for approval to sell to them if we don't have, people that bid on them at the auction.
But first run out of the chute, we have an auction.
Yes.
Right.
And then
Yeah.
whatever doesn't move at the auction, we
Mhm.
send to the junkyard or we take their bids.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Council Burkett.
Can I make a suggestion as an alternative? There's several charities in town that refurbish vehicles. I know we can't give them to them, but could we sell them to them for like $1? As another option potentially if anything's not bid on?
There is something in state statute that says if it doesn't sell at auction, we can then donate it to a
Uh,
501c3.
I would
So we
much
could
rather do
as
that.
well.
There's several great charities that use them for that purpose.
We could certainly.
Or
look
just
into
take a
that.
sledgehammer to them and take donations.
Right, we could open up one of those things where people pay to bust
Well,
up cars.
We wouldn't do that, but we could let somebody else do that.
Staff stress reliever.
That's right.
As for your, Counselor Murray's other question for the electronics, our IT company, Systems MD, they provide that as a service as part of our contract. And they recycle all of the e-waste. So what they do is they go in and they pull all of the hard drives and destroy the hard drives. So that way we don't have to worry about there being any sort of, information from the police department or, the clerk's office with old IPRAs, anything like that. They're all destroyed and then they recycle all of the material for us.
Excellent. Anything else? Okay, how do you vote, Councilor Murray?
Aye.
Councilor Burkett,
Aye.
Councilor Alsabrook,
Aye.
Councilor Knight.
Aye.
Councilor Woolman.
Aye.
Councilor Mira.
Yes, sir.
Resolution passes. Consideration action approval of resolution 23-33, support for electric vehicle grant application. Tanya, do you want to talk? Is Tanya still online?
Mayor, I move that we approve this resolution 2333.
Oh, I was going to see if Tanya would want to say something. Okay, so we have a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
And a second. Tanya, now do you want to say something
You're muted, Tanya.
about this EV grant?
If anyone has any questions on what we're looking at doing or applying for, I'll be happy to answer them.
Anybody have any questions? Yes, sir. Councilor Alsabrook.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm just, and I'm sure this is just my fuddled brain. I'm a bit confused by the second whereas clause. We've been awarded 100,000. We require matching funds of 20% and we're requesting 100,000. Which one's the 20% and 20% of what?
So the minimum grant we can, thank you, Counselor Mayor, Administrator Curry. The minimum grant we can apply for under this grant is 500,000. Depending on which way we go, I'm still waiting on PNM to give me an energy, what we have available both at the rec center and we are looking at putting into at Village Hall. I've got contacts, but they haven't come out. Will depend on if we use phase 3 or phase 2 chargers. I'm also hoping to do a multimodal at the rec center charger. So waiting on PNM for that. And also we are looking at possibly doing an all solar system. And the all solar one for a phase 3 does require 4 of the machines put together in series to run. So the minimum grant is 500,000. Right now I have it estimated at 800,000. And if we get awarded, we do have the 100,000 from capital outlay that was passed this last year coming in. And I've requested DOT to give us the rest of the matching. Doesn't mean we're going to get it, but I have requested it.
Thank you, Commander. That was the missing arithmetic. Thank you.
I'm just trying to make sure we're over 500,000 if we need it. And we're within that 800,000 because we should have match for it.
Councilor Woolman.
Mayor, just a question, Tanya, how much is a charging station, an individual charging station? Approximately.
That's very interesting. So if you do phase 2, which is what I have quotes on that was done, a grant done with Sandoval County last year, phase 2 chargers, which are slower, I could probably get 3 of those with the 100,000 we have coming in. But it's not going to guarantee. When we do chargers, the parking spots have to be ADA compliant. All of those things have to be put in place. You have to have a way to charge them. So, and they really want us to go with phase 3. And so it's estimated roughly 175 to 195,000 to do it all. But we've got to throw in engineering. We are lucky everywhere we're wanting to put them has already had ground disturbed, but we will have to have some of the backup stuff for the federal government. Requires engineering. And once again, this is federal grant. So it does require other things to be done when you're using that money. So it gets a little more expensive when you're using federal money than if we were just going to use village money. And then we have to look at which chargers make the best for the community. Tesla only has Tesla. Some vehicles can only charge at certain ones, but they could buy an adapter to charge other places. So there's a lot going into it. So I am writing the grant also for engineering and to get an engineering firm on board.
Great. Thank you.
Councilor Murray.
Thank you. Tanya, would we then be able to charge customers that if they hook up?
So yes, we would have to charge customers. Otherwise, I think we'd be violating the anti-donation clause. Unless it was an all solar system, that might be different. I know Albuquerque has some that aren't charged. I don't know if they're city owned, but they're home rule. So that kind of changes some of that stuff. So yes, we have to look at, are we going to do Wi-Fi payment? Are we only going to do app? Are we going to have a credit card machine? We have to post it on all the different places that list charging stations for the corridors. And or are we going to do hardwire? I think we'll probably have to go with Wi-Fi cellular, because the places at the rec center that I've looked at with Lynn and then at Village Hall, there's not a lot of places that have Wi-Fi right or internet connection right there. We also don't want it ripped out.
Anything else? Okay. How do you vote, Councilor Meir?
Yes, sir.
Councilor Waldman?
Aye.
Councilor Knight?
Yes.
Councilor Alsobrook?
Aye.
Councilor Burkett?
Aye.
Councilor Murray?
Aye.
Okay, resolution 2333 is passed. Now, discussion of draft ordinance 2305 amending portions of chapter 6 animals. This is discussion only. No vote. Anybody have anything they want to say?
Yes.
Go ahead.
First of all, I want to thank our legal counsel. I know it's 17 pages of ordinances, some of which existed in the past, some of which is taken, additions taken from the hard ordinance in Albuquerque. But I want to thank for the good work that was put in. We received these last Friday, and they are complex. And they become the laws of the village, and it's important to get it right. So I have some specifics that I actually talked to Corey before the meeting that I think I'd like to send to her, that perhaps in the next discussion, they can be incorporated and we can discuss and vote on at that time.
Okay, I think that's reasonable. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mayor. So I also had sent Corey a list of definitions and some comments. I also had some additional comments also about section 6.2. We talk about mammals and birds. I'm wondering if we should just replace that with animals. It seems to me that they're further down in 6.2. We do mention just animals, and then it's just for consistency. So it's in that section 1, 2, and 3. And I think under medical treatment, I think we should probably change the language to make it more consistent and change it to animals. Also, we probably need a definition for companion animal. It seems to me that I also is missing now the definitions. I had mentioned service animal as well when I sent my list over to Corey. In section 6.9, do we need to remove some language? Let me look over at 6.9 because there was some language I thought we'd need to probably remove. Let me get over to it. Oops. I also had definitions for basic animal services and medical services and the emergency medical services, but now let's see, is that it? Yeah, 6.9. I think it's under C, if I remember right. C2 or C. We kind of define service animal, but do we need to remove the language after that? Let's see. If we have a definition for service animal, do we just need to have that language it's at the end of where it's mentioned? And then also, I think common under normal circumstances under that section 6 and 6.9C, I thought we ought to just remove that as well. I don't know if I'm making any sense or not, but
Actually, you're not.
okay, thank you.
But if you've got it written down or if you've communicated that with
Yeah.
Corey, then that's,
It's more specific.
Yeah, I can do that. I can do that.
okay. That makes sense.
So probably save a bunch of time.
Well, when you can sit there and think about it, you can collect your thoughts probably a little better.
Not according to my wife.
Okay, well, you want to have a vote on that? So, anybody else?
Just a quick question. Mr.
Yes, sir, Councilor Mira.
I was just talking with the counselor here about 6.9 on the C. It's unlawful for any owner to keep an animal to make excessive noise. And asked if there was anything different about this one. Only because of the fact that it looks like the next thing's gonna happen, they're gonna be calling the police officers, they want to file a complaint about barking dogs or howling dogs. Is that different than what we had before, what we have now? So
I don't think it is, however,
I can answer that really roughly. And the answer is that I believe right now nuisance is defined, but not in such detail. So the thing about this that makes it a little bit more important is that it defines what becomes problematic because, you know, a barking dog whenever the mail is delivered is a completely separate situation than having somebody's dog who's staked out in the backyard, barking continuously for hours and hours and hours. That rises to the level of nuisance, where currently the way it's written, if somebody has a dog who barks when the mail's delivered every single day, technically it's repetitive, technically it's a nuisance, technically it's an annoying barking dog. It could be something that could be a citable offense. Generally, you wouldn't necessarily consider it that way, but if you have, unfriendly neighbors, they might take vindictive action. So this creates sort of a really specific guideline so that you don't necessarily find yourself rising to the level of nuisance just for having a reactive dog.
okay, thank you.
so barking dogs, I mean, that's what they do. When people show up at your door, they bark. It's like your ring that rings when somebody walks by your front door. So trying to separate those out is difficult. And a lot of it will be, based upon what's happening at the occasion where they are barking. But we know that our ordinances do not allow for dogs to be staked out on a rope or a chain. And that will cause, personality changes in a dog if that's the way they live. And they'll bark all the
Go
time.
bark all night.
Yeah. Yes, sir, Councilor Murray.
So I guess that brings up another question. Will there be some coordination between animal services and the police department if somebody gets a call after hours, the police responds, so that those 10 nuisance calls all get melded into one?
I'm not sure the answer to that. I would have to ask Chief Mangiacapra that question.
Okay.
What his policy is on that, because, we only have 2 animal services officers.
Well, if animal services takes, say, 5, then all of a sudden the police department takes 5 from the same.
Yes,
How do we make sure that there's coordination and that all 10?
because they're covered by the police chief.
Okay.
He's the guy in charge. And so, yes, you would anticipate they would be coordinated. There was some documents or documentation of the barking would be carried forward. I mean, that's just my concept, probably, we hope that's what happened. Okay, anybody else? Okay, next one is a discussion of new liquor license approval procedures. Okay. Anybody have any comments, any questions? This has not been placed in an ordinance yet. This is just a discussion that we've talked about in the past regarding the issue where people are putting in a restaurant or a bar that's in an area which previously was a restaurant or bar, but isn't being approved at this time because, say, for example, APS doesn't want it there.
Right.
Yes, sir. Council Murray.
Thank you, Mayor. So this would include package sales as well. Is that correct?
Correct.
It's my understanding.
The way it's written, it does. And the reason that I built it that way was largely because I couldn't really find a justification in the state statute to split the hairs. Where I wanted you guys to be able to consider packaged liquor sales in that 300-foot radius. But understanding, of course, that's a completely different animal than a restaurant or a bar. So you have the discretion and this is designed to vest that power with you so that you can consider the fact that it's packaged liquor versus a bar versus a general, like a brunch restaurant or something like that of that nature, where it may be a little bit less of a concern to have somebody serving something versus selling, a 12-pack across the street from, your elementary school. So that it leaves the discretion with you guys.
Councilor Burkett.
Something I'd like to see that we put in there if possible, because it was a high topic of discussion last time this issue came up, was there's apparently an attorney general opinion in 1980, I think it's 80-23, that specifically says that we cannot make any sort of modifications to accommodate for an approval of an appeal. So I just want to make sure, because we had talked about limiting the hours, we talked about a drink maximum, we talked about all these different things. And it looks like they've been commented on. So I think it'd be wise to probably have that specifically stated in our ordinance that it's an all or nothing deal.
Yes and no. So Councilor Burkett, there had been briefly in here a provision that said that there would be conditions that could be granted. We could say, yeah, you can do that, but only if you operate between 9 and 5. And the reality is that AG opinion makes it very, very clear that the council can't do that. And so I just opted to leave it out just to make it very clear to you guys that is not something that you can consider whenever whenever somebody is bringing this to you and they say, well, we'll concede that, we'll change our operating hours to, 5 to 9 p.m. so that, we don't run afoul of going over school hours. You can't take that into consideration or under advisement. And so it's very specifically not on here for that purpose.
Councilor Waldman.
Just for clarification, this is a new position for the village at this point. That we did not have the authority previously to override an APS letter or something like that.
I believe we had the authority. We just didn't have the guidelines here in the village.
Didn't have a procedure.
So this
Procedure.
formalizes
That's it. Yeah, this actually formalizes that procedure.
Okay.
And that was the issue that came up with,
Locomotive.
yes,
Yep.
locomotive. Okay, Councilor also Brooke.
Just a question. I just want to clarify. That you gave the example of something like locomotive of property that had been
I'm
formerly.
not sure we should be saying.
I-
that, actually.
You use the example, and that was my words, my mistake. You use the example of a property that had been formerly used.
Yeah.
And had an approved license that no longer did and was coming back. But that language isn't here. This actually also captures new permits and approvals.
Correct. So what you can
Yes.
take into consideration is, let's say it was a totally new building that just happened to be, say, maybe adjacent to that same property. So you have a history in the area of a successful business that had served beer, wine, liquor. And so you have, you've got historically something in the area that had that same function that may not have been the same building, same business. It may even be differently situated, but you can still consider that. So it could be something that is totally new, never existed before. Or you can also consider this is a place that, they've served beer and wine for the last 100 years. It's never been a problem before. So you have the opportunity to take both of those things into consideration.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor Mira.
Thank you. And Councilwoman, just ask my question to the point, but I'll get to the specifics on it as I read one more time, the APS part, because I have to get clear on that one. That notwithstanding, the question then would be about, and that's what brought it up. They come in and they say, we don't want you to serve miniatures or whatever. That is not negotiable anymore. Because it was for quite some time in Albuquerque, it was like, that was one of those things that, okay, we'll let you come in, but you got to sell only quality liquor or you can't sell miniatures, one of the two. And they got their liquor licenses with those kinds of situations, but that's out now.
My contention is that was very likely always illegal. And so it's just a matter of how certain policy was applied. And in fact, the ability for the village to waive this distance requirement is not new. The way that it's been interpreted in the past was that if the school or the church said, yeah, go for it, then we would say, okay, cool. But there was a recent amendment, and I don't recall if it was maybe 2018, 2019, that the legislature actually just went in and they didn't change anything, but they clarified that the power rests with the governing body. And so where we had sort of inherently given it to the school and the church because they're the ones who, could be the ones who are offended by this potential conduct. It's always been the governing body who ultimately had the authority to say, yeah, okay. And so what this does is it just creates a procedure. So let's say APS, because by their very policy, whether or not Corrales Elementary wants to, APS as an entity has to oppose. And so whether or not the school officials say, we don't really care, but APS formally in writing has to say, no, we don't want it. This allows you the opportunity to circumvent that, knowing that historically it's been okay.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Anything else? So if anyone had signed up to speak on any of these, you would have told me.
Sure would.
Okay. All right, now we have a commission appointment. Consideration, action, approval of appointment of Heather Ballas to the Planning and Zoning Commission. And Ms. Ballas is here. Would you like to speak briefly?
Thinking briefly is the option.
That's
There, I would just say to the council that I've had the opportunity to serve with a number of you in different capacities, and so happy to do that. I believe in service. I believe in community service, and most of my work right now doesn't actually have me working in New Mexico. And this is the first time in 20+ years where that's my experience. So if you all would give me the chance to help here at home, that'd be lovely. And my professional life has a whole lot of bringing people together across really disparate positions. My understanding is that planning and zoning is the place in town where we have the biggest problem with that. So if I can help out in that space, I'd like to, and I'm happy to answer any questions about it. I think y'all have my application and resume in your packet. So anything I can answer.
Anyone have a question?
Have fun.
Did I pronounce that correctly? Ballas?
Yes, sir.
Okay. No, I couldn't remember how I pronounced it when you were there.
Dallas or
Yes. Very good. Very good. Thank you.
That's funny.
And that was brief. There you go. There you go. Thank you very much.
For the great reputation I've worked with.
We're very glad to have her join the team. Okay, we finished the business of the council. Yes, sir.
We need a motion.
Mayor, I move we,
Oh, we got to vote on her. Shoot, I just appointed her.
man,
Okay.
I move,
Gosh, I keep.
I move we approve Heather Ballas for appointment to,
Second.
So we have a motion to approve in a second. Appointment of Heather Ballas to the Planning and Zoning Commission. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? None, hearing none. Ms. Ballas is appointed to the Planning and Zoning Commission, and thank you very much for coming in and applying. Really appreciate it. Future agenda items include the final budget tentatively scheduled for July 11th. Vote on ordinance 23-03 for zone map amendment for June 13th. Vote on ordinance 2304 election opt-in June 13th. And the ICIP list creation date is due
August 18th.
August 18th.
August 18th is
August
the date
18th.
that I have to have it turned in by.
That's the day we need it.
Yeah.
Final
If-
day.
If we could vote on the actual list by the second meeting in July, that would be great. So
Okay.
I'd like to bring the list to the council here, either the first or second meeting in June, have them use the Survey Monkey to rank the list like we
Right.
did last year and actually have some scientific backing for our rankings.
Love that.
Yes, I knew you would. So have you guys rank them through Survey Monkey, and then that way it just gives me a report and says, this is our top 10.
And we're going to ask the department heads to also rank theirs so that we have an idea of what they really consider most important. Counselor Alsterbrook, you had a comment.
just, an agenda item for June 13th. My intention is to bring a resolution that committing the village to a ballot measure for the opt-in of our elections. Unspecified date could be the regular, if it were to pass, it would possibly be the next regular election if it's possible to do that. No, it's just not requiring a special election like we did back for districting.
All right.
So it's really a resolution for opinion and commitment rather than a date certain.
So you want to have a ballot measure to go on the next election to whether or not we're going to opt in to a different election timeframe.
Right, which the consequence of that would be we would have one more regular March election, since obviously it would be too late for us to
Sure.
have the ballot and still opt in for this.
Okay.
We may have to do that as a special election from feedback I've gotten from other clerks that we wouldn't be able to put it on our March ballot. We can only put either a bond question or the positions that are open. Anything else would have to be done as a special election, and all special elections, I believe, have to be done as mail elections. So
Which is different, and that's a nice.
We'll get more
Yeah.
information. Yes, sir,
We'll
Councilwoman.
find
There's
out.
election this November, I assume, for Skowska School Board, that kind of a thing.
Yes, sir.
Could we put it on there?
it's
No.
my understanding that we would not
I
be
don't
able to
think
do
so,
that
yeah.
from, and
Yeah,
that's
sure.
coming from the Clerks League, but I'll contact the Secretary of State's office.
We'll
and get
look
some
into it.
clarification on that.
And it's certainly interesting that the whole intent of this is to make elections more efficient, but we can't vote on it in any way efficient manner.
Right.
The irony is not lost.
Well.
It's government.
That's right.
That's negotiable.
Okay.
Mayor, one more comment.
Yes, sir.
If we could, and I think I mentioned this before, could we have a work study with planning and zoning and council? And have New Mexico Municipal League come in and give us more of a 1 day or 1 hour, 2 hour training about the do's and don'ts of being on the commission and ordinances and so forth?
I think we can do that.
I would like something.
We've actually talked about that.
We talked about it, but I like to get it somewhere in the schedule so that all of us are on the same page when it comes to
In
the.
fact, Randy Van Vleck used to do that.
I was
Yeah.
gonna say, we don't even need to get the municipal league.
Yeah.
The municipal league head honcho, Randall Van Vleck, actually retired from the municipal league and works with us at New Mexico Local Government Law.
And he used to run those education programs. In fact, I don't know if John, did you go to the orientation way back when? He was one of the guys
Yeah,
that were
back when
running
he
the
was,
program.
yep.
I just think, it would be beneficial to have the commission and.
I agree with you completely.
So.
Yeah.
Okay, we finished the business?
Yep.
I adjourn the meeting. Thank you all.
Thank you.